afternoon. Welcome to the 10th installment of That's What Teens Say right here in Champaign-Urbana. I'm Jenette Jurczyk. I'm the National Director of the She Said Project, the organization that created and runs this program. I'm so honored and happy to see you all here to support these amazing ladies. And I just want to say thank you for letting us spend the weekend with these 9 incredible teens. I mean, we have learned so much from them. We have laughed together. We have cried together. We've gone through a pretty incredible experience. So we want to raise teen voices. We want to raise women's voices. We want girls and women to know that what they have to say matters. And this is our platform where we get to do this through the power of storytelling. So since Friday night, 9 girls came together, didn't know each other. We're strangers. We're nervous. We're uncomfortable. And we made them do some silly, awkward, crazy things, but we did it too. We did it with them. And we showed them that when we come together and when we listen, we truly listen, we can develop friendships, we can empower each other, and we can build confidence. And I really want to thank a few people for making this weekend possible. The Champaign Park District, first and foremost, for allowing us to use their incredible facilities. The Rock Counseling Group, who have supported us for 3 years now, and who sent one of their team members to come and talk to the girls this weekend. It really takes a village to put on a program like this. Busey Bank, Copper Creek Church, both Moe's Southwest Grill and Jersey Mike's, who fed our girls this weekend. Megan from CU Create, who came out and did an art project with our girls. It says so in the program, but their art is going to be displayed on the walls of Busey Bank in a couple of weeks, and we will get that information out to you. But right now, their art is on display as you walk down the stairs, up on the window and on the gate, so you can see that before you leave. The girls cannot take this art home, but they do have some wonderful goodies back in the dressing room that they can take home after the show. My mentors, Danielle and Tierra, and Kerry Rossow and I, and our technical team, thank you guys for being here. It is a labor of love, and we do it because we love it. And we're so grateful you're here to support these girls, because it's not about us. It's really about the stories you're about to hear. But here's the thing. When you come to like a theatrical event, typically you wait till the end of the show before you stand up and you give the big applause. But this show, this performance, this is just the icing on the cake. They have already done the work. They already have so much to be celebrated for. So when they come out here, I need your help. I want everyone on their feet. We're going to give them the biggest welcome and the biggest standing ovation, because we need to celebrate what these girls have done these past 3 days. So without further ado, please welcome to the stage your 2024 That's What Teens Say speakers.
Growing up, my parents had their fair share of problems, but we lived an overall normal life. That was until my mom decided she wanted to open a nature-based and animal-assisted speech therapy business when I was 12. For me, that meant moving from Danville to the middle of the nowhere outside of a small town called Homer. We planned to adopt a variety of animals and use a small apartment in the barn as my mom's clinic. Needless to say, it was a dream come true. My one stipulation was we needed to adopt a potbelly pig. For my 14th birthday, we rescued 2 potbellies, Humphrey and Effie. Not too long after that came the alpacas, chickens, barn cats, another pig, peacocks, and most recently, our turkey Walter. We got better and better at country life. We learned to build pens, worked to clean built-up dirt and junk out of the barn to turn it into a therapy space, figured out how to give our animals the highest quality of life, and eventually even bought a tractor to help us take care of the driveway lane, pasture, and pens. My mom realized her dream was to turn this into a nonprofit. And after what felt like a decade, we got approved to be Roxy's House 501c3. It felt like everything was starting to fall into place, until January of 2022. My dad's drinking had become more and more severe, and my parents' fighting was almost constant. It was clear something had to change. I spent 2022 waiting for my dad to get better and go back to the kind and supportive pillar of my life he had always been. Waiting for my family to return to a safe place to relax after a stressful day, and waiting for me to return to the joyful kid I've always been. But that never came. My dad did not stop drinking, he got worse. He got more and more volatile. So my mom filed for divorce, and my dad was ordered out of our house on February 2023. My mom and I were lost. We had no idea if we could make this business work without him, if we could financially support and maintain this farm. It became clear very quickly that I had to step up and make this work. I started to pick up where my dad left off. I learned to mend fences, keep up with the mower, change the attachments on the tractor, and became more consistent with cleaning the pins. I also helped as much as I could with the nonprofit. We planned and played out children's events and fundraisers for the organization. We decorated the barn from top to bottom as a Barbie dream house and then again as a Christmas wonderland. We worked for months and months to build magic for kids at a time that I felt like magic was a cruel joke. Through it all, I made mistakes. I ran into fences on the mower, making the belt snap and go flying off. I've accidentally left the gate open for the alpacas out and had to chase them up and down dirt roads more times than I can count, and I'm sure I'll do it again soon. I've spent hours doubting myself and my ability to figure this out and feeling unworthy of this major responsibility. I've wanted to run and hide and give up. I've asked, why does this have to be my family? Why can't I be a normal teenager who goes to school and maybe works at the local ice cream shop? For the first time in my life, I went weeks without talking to my dad and months without seeing him. The supportive person who was supposed to take care of me above all else seemed to have alcohol as his top priority. I wanted to have my family and my home again. Through it all, the question has loomed over our head. How much longer? How much longer until they decide we have to sell the house? How much longer until we have to give up the animals? How much longer can we keep doing this or until we have to give up? Will our time expire or will we succeed? We still don't know the outcome, but I've learned to be okay with the unknown. I learned to enjoy the process of building something and doing it so closely with my mom. I now value all that I learned about myself through the process. I know if I want to do anything, all I need is a couple YouTube tutorials and I'll figure it out. When it gets overwhelming and I feel like I can't take one more second, I know it takes one person's helping hand or a good nap and I can push through. I learned that my dad's actions and treatment do not define me. I know I'm worthy of every accomplishment I get, and I deserve the happiness and peace. I know that no matter the outcome, it was all worth it to find who I am. I know I can.
When I was walking on the field, it was so awkward and kind of uncomfortable. I knew everybody there, but something just didn't feel right. Everybody was looking at me so differently. I was wondering, then I knew why. I was the only girl on a baseball team with all boys. Even though I was the only girl, I was still an important part of the team. Some people were very surprised to watch me, a girl, playing and seeing how good I was. I know that I'm a good baseball player, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. There are just so many things that I didn't like about playing baseball. I feel like I didn't have to play because I did for other sports, but my mom made me do it. I understood that my mom wanted to keep me active as baseball is just a sport that I didn't enjoy. I don't want to play baseball because I'm the only girl. I play softball and I play 4 other sports, so I really don't need to play baseball. In any sports, referees and umpires make bad calls, but when playing baseball, it makes me more mad and frustrated because I do not want to be there in the first place. It even made me want to quit, but my mom still wanted me to play. This one time at practice, some guys were picking on me because I made a mistake, but whenever they used to say something, I just used to ignore them and get better. So by them making fun of me made me better so I could prove them wrong. My teammates stopped picking on me once they saw that I was getting better. Things that I would rather do is play Roblox, listen to music, and play softball, volleyball, basketball, and track. I'd rather do these things because I enjoy them. Even though I don't enjoy playing baseball, I can see that it can help me in so many ways. Playing baseball teaches me that just because I don't like doing Just because I don't like doing something doesn't mean that I'm not good at it. I will not allow myself to feel less than who I really am, and I'm very proud of myself for not giving up and keep pushing through.
I would feel very sad if I could never talk to my dad again. I love to live with my dad because I definitely have more freedom with my dad. The year 2021 is a summer when I experienced things that I never knew I would. It was not my first time going to my dad's house, but I was still a little nervous. In the beginning of the summer, I was always outside every day with my 2 cousins riding our bikes everywhere. I had an electric scooter, a hoverboard, and 2 bikes, but now I currently have 3 bikes, and I'm too old for my electric scooter, so it was given away. At one point, my older cousin Kamal, who was 2 years older than me, got addicted to playing online video games, so he didn't want to go outside anymore. It was just my other cousin Kevon and I, who was a year older than me. Sometimes my friend-like cousins would spend the night, and we would also ride bikes together as a bigger group. When there was a good day to ride the bikes, my dad came along with my cousins and I only a very few times, but my stepmom only came 2 to 4 times. One day, we went to a store or something called Swamp Meat, and of course my dad was playing his music loud, so I was just in the back with my stepmom's phone playing games. I never heard of a Swamp Meat before, but it's only open on the weekends at a certain time. So on a Saturday afternoon, we went to the swamp. It was at least a 20-minute drive, and when we got there, it was packed. We really went for a car part that my dad needed, but I got a brown hat that looked purple to me. Everything there looked nice, especially the jewelry. It was actually a fun experience because I've never been to a place like that before. When my stepmom cooks dinner, I usually get another plate because the food is good. I was also put in some gymnastics, and I actually enjoyed it. Sometimes I would go to my grandmother's house and play with my older cousins. We would walk most of the time instead of riding the bikes like my other cousins. By the way, I am an only child, so I was constantly bored. There were some days when my cousins weren't around or something, and I would stay inside the house and watch shows or movies or play online games. Most of the time when I talk to my dad, I feel happy because we don't talk as much as we should. And when we don't talk, I don't feel much because we both can be very busy with our own lives. Like my dad has his own job and works on people's cars while I have after-school activities or programs, chores, homework, etc. My dad had to have a few talks with me because he noticed I shut down a lot and I'm not as extroverted as I used to be. When I'm not having fun, I remember the times I did have fun when I'm with my dad. The special thing about my summer of 2021 is having the freedom at my dad's house and being around a lot of people to have fun with.
Helen Keller once said that a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. I know that everyone's heard the saying, no regrets, or you only live once. Well, so have I. These sayings can inspire a lot of stress, even when they're supposed to be encouraging or even funny. I'm from Colorado. My family would go camping in Wyoming almost every weekend. We would go hiking and visit my grandparents all the time. But when I was 5, my grandma, we called her Grammy, she passed away. My dad's side of the family lived in Illinois. He was worried about Grandpa being on his own, so my parents decided that we were going to move closer to family. We lived with my papa for a while. It was weird and hard because grief makes people act in a different way. At the time, though, I thought this was just some super cool adventure. The thought incinerated when I walked up during the wake and saw my funny, loud, and outgoing grandma in her pretty red dress and realized she wasn't going to wake up. We weren't going to explore her collection of porcelain eggs ever again. I had to go up twice. My younger brother didn't understand, but then again, we were only like 4 and 5. A couple of months later, we moved into our new house. I started to meet new people, and everything started to seem to be turning up. I was living large, but I started to worry about my parents and that they would get sick. Even a little cold, it meant that they were going to die. I started worrying about being left alone after my parents die in the far future. I thought that all the little sounds that my house made was someone trying to get in. But most of all, I started to fear change. I wanted everything to stay the same. No aging, no accidents, never getting rid of anything. These fears started to take effect after my great-grandma developed dementia, which just added to the pile. I was afraid of forgetting things now as well. I was a mess. My fears manifested in lack of sleep, high-speed camera parts after the lights turned off, and poorly checked emotions. My parents, kudos to them, they were always there for me. They always tried to help me, but in the end, it was up to me to decide that I didn't want to live like that anymore. Of course, I didn't figure that out until much later. Mind you, I'm like 9 at this point. I tried all these different ways to help me calm down enough to sleep. I tried sound machines, rhythmic breathing, and sleeping with my parents. The last one didn't fly for very long. Nothing was working for me. Even though I was practicing martial arts, hoping it would give me more skills to cope, it made me think of all the reasons why I had to be prepared to protect myself. My parents are pretty Catholic and would encourage me to do a few Hail Marys to see if it would calm my fears. Eventually, I came around to praying. I recited prayers all the time, and they were ultimately one of the reasons I was able to cope with my anxiety. My nights started to get easier. I was praying and sleeping with a dryer because I drowned out the sounds of my creaky old house. I also started to be more physically active during the day in order to wear myself out. And I stopped needing the dryer. I sleep like a rock now. My imagination can really take a small thing and run. This was scary, especially since I understood these things probably a little bit more than I should have at that age. This whole thing took a lot longer than I would have thought or liked, but I really am thankful for it. I learned how to control my emotions and how to put things into perspective. These helped me through the death of my grandma a few years ago. I feel like I was more helpful to my mom during this time. It wasn't any easier, but I was able to accept and move on smoother. Sorry. Change isn't a bad thing. It's actually the opposite. Time won't stop even when you really want it to. The key is to get up, find the solution, and shoot towards it head on. Luckily, I kept it with my martial arts training, and now it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, helping me feel safe, strong, and confident. Plus, life is more fun when you can accept the fact that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will end up changing for the better.
How did I end up in foster care? My name is Darionna Bryant from Danville, Illinois, a small town I used to live with my dad and mom, but a lot has happened, and today I'm getting used to being in foster care. My brother and my cousin and I will always fight with each other. I used to hate when my cousin would bully me or make fun of me because I had short hair and she had longer hair. I always wanted to be like her, but in reality, we got different hair textures from our parents. One day, my mom and my dad found a house down the street from my grandma. My brother and my cousin and I will always go outside with our friends, but one day, me and my brother did something bad. My brother hit our friend's window, and we got in trouble with our father, and we got punished real bad. I wanted to do something to my dad. I couldn't. When I was younger, he always made me mad and tease a whole bunch, and it does make me mad. But I was so quiet and scared to say something. I'm very shy to say anything to anyone. And people think I'm very weird because I don't talk to anyone. But when my mom had her 5th baby, we moved to another house, and we moved far away from our grandma that I'm very close to and always love. But when we moved to our new house, one night my dad and my cousin got into it. I don't know what happened, but my mom took me and my 5 sons to our grandma's house. Since that night, we barely see our mom and our dad. I guess our grandma was our guardian, and it was a rough time for our grandma to take care of us. There was a lot of drama, and I would sometimes hear my mom and her sister arguing in the other room. When we were trying to sleep, one night it got real bad, and the police came. Living in that house, that there were always fighting and stress and arguments and yelling, and I couldn't stand being around that situation. It makes me feel that I had a worse childhood. The day came when me and my brother started school. It was horrible. I would get bullied by girls because my hair was short. My mom made me put on a wig because she didn't want to do my hair. And one of the kids pulled it off of me when she passed me in the hallway. And I was so embarrassed. I cried in the classroom with my hair down. I kept crying and crying until I got home. And I was so angry at my mother. I didn't want to talk to her. I stayed in my grandma's room until I fell asleep. The next day when my grandma got a phone call, someone was saying they're going to be foster kids until they get their situation right. When my grandma told me, I ran outside crying behind the house, and I said, this can't be happening, this can't be happening. So I went back inside, and my eyes were puffy and red. My face was red. I went to go to sleep and get all the stress and pain off of me. and I just couldn't anymore. I felt like I didn't have anyone in my life. It just seems like me and my siblings, that's it. Next morning when my grandma woke me up, I saw bags packed with our clothes in the hallway. As me and my siblings were getting dressed, and my grandma started to cry, and then someone knocked at the door. It was a black woman and a white woman, and they were grabbing our bags, and my siblings and I started to cry. And we didn't want to leave, and those people were saying, "We don't have a choice, let's go." We said goodbye to our grandma. We got in the car, and they were silent. They stopped at McDonald's. We were driving in the car silently. I could see at the window. We were heading to Champaign. When we got to Champaign, we were pulling up to a random house. They told us that we could not all go together and that we had to split up into different homes. I was shocked and I started crying. I pulled out my phone and started recording so I can make memories with them before we go our separate ways. So when it was just me and my little sister approached the house, I was nervous. The house was gorgeous. The foster parent name is Miss Angela Evans. She adopted a lot of kids. She was introducing us to her house. She showed us our room. I never ever had my own room at my grandma's house because there was too many family members living there. So we always had to sleep in the living room. So Angela tried to do my hair. I didn't want anyone or a stranger to touch my hair. But me and my sister got used to the family members, and I started to go to Edison Middle School. I didn't know anyone. My foster mom took me there with a person to show me around. I used to get bullied by kids because I was in a special classroom. In 2022, I was having a good life, tried to forget things, and I did basketball in 7th grade. I'm doing track now. I talk to my mom a lot and see her a lot. I know I'm happy it's 2024, and hopefully I will go home pretty soon with my grandma and my cousins, mostly everybody. I know I wish I could see my dad, but all the things he put me through, the pain and the stress, and I can't stand talking to him, but he's still my dad after all. As I grow up, I have to figure out where all these things fit into my life. It's been confusing, but I hope it will make sense again one day. I'm grateful to Miss Angela, but hope I can go back to my life with my family and my mom and my grandma can have a better life too.
Ever since I got hit with a basketball directly in my face, I hated basketball. I disliked everything about it. I never understood why people loved basketball so much. Shooting a silly orange ball into a dumb net, dribbling a ball up and back down the court, getting injured, also having people's nasty, germy bodies online. Yeah, no. I found it very displeasing, but things changed in 7th grade. While me and my friends were sitting at lunch, we noticed a man walking around with yellow papers in his hand, distributing them out to each table he came across. I was pretty curious on what kind of papers the man was passing out, but I wasn't worried about it. After some time, the same man that was passing out yellow papers finally came to my friend's table. When he spoke, his voice sounded awfully familiar. I looked up to see it was my sister's high school basketball coach. We both made eye contact, and I just had a feeling something was going to happen. I quickly looked down, breaking eye contact me and him had, looking down at my untouched lunch that I haven't laid a hand on. "Are you going to try out?" he asked. I already knew he was talking to me. I can feel him shooting laser beams in the back of my head. I looked up to see him staring right at me. In that moment, I was lost in thought, not knowing what to say, but then snapped back in reality by a shove. I could see he was still waiting for my response, but I was still struggling on what to say. I really don't know. I don't see myself playing basketball. Besides, I'm not even good anyways, I replied, realizing that I basically rejected his offer on joining the team. "That's why there's a thing called practice, girl," he chuckled. "Just think about it." I then grabbed the yellow paper from out of his hand, and he smiled, then walked off to the next table. I already knew that I wasn't going to try out. I wanted to play volleyball, not basketball. So I knew what I was going to do. Basketball tryouts then came, and the plan was not to let the coach see me sitting down in 9th hour, watching the clock and not whatever we were learning in that class. We only had 7 minutes left, but with me staring at the clock made it seem like the class just started. As soon as the final bell rang, I quickly packed up my stuff and left the classroom, aiming myself towards the door, hearing staff telling me to slow down, but I was too focused on getting onto my bus. Volleyball tryouts came, and I was pretty nervous since this was my first time ever playing volleyball, but I had a gut feeling that something good was going to happen. I partnered with my friend Natalie since we planned on it before tryouts began, and we heard that only 4 6th graders could make the team. But I felt like we had potential. We were told that we would receive an email with our tryout number around 8 o'clock, and it was currently 7:25, so I waited. I then felt my phone vibrate. I grabbed my phone to see that it was 8:02, and I had a notification from my Gmail. As I searched through the numbers looking for mine, I found it and smiled. I then remembered that the email said that our first practice will be tomorrow. So, with that, I packed my volleyball bag and had it next to my school bag so I don't have to scramble and find stuff in the morning. One practice, a familiar figure came in with some wires in their hand. I was trying to read out who it was until I saw that they were wearing a central hat. At that moment, I knew that I was in trouble. I quickly tried to hide behind one of my teammates, but that didn't work. He saw me and walked up to me and asked, why didn't I go to tryouts? I quickly had to think of a lie, and saying that made me feel really bad. So I told him that I'll try out in 7th grade. And just like that, 7th grade and basketball open gym both came. I decided not to go to the open gym since I was occupied with other sports, but that's when I realized I would have to do 2 sports at the same time. Well, that was only if I made the team. There was only 1 week left before tryouts, and I was getting more and more nervous each day. That's until 1 week passed and tryouts were right after school. I kept on checking the clock, looking at it getting closer to the 9th hour. I wasn't paying attention to the teacher lesson at all, but I was more focused onto the clock. We had started packing up our stuff since there were only 2 minutes left of class before 9th hour, and the bell rang. This time, I did pay attention because science was the easiest class for now. There were 2 minutes left before the bell rang, and we started to stack up the chairs and waiting for the bell to ring. I was lost in thought, and I saw that I was the only one in the classroom. I walked out and went to my locker to grab my book bag and my other supplies. I went to the gym seeing that people were already there. I noticed that a lot of my friends were here, and they were really good at basketball. I just stood there since I didn't have any basketball shoes, so I tried out in Crocs. After the tryouts, I felt something that I'd never felt for a sport before. I enjoyed playing basketball now. I wanted to play any chance I got. One coach showed me a side that I'd never seen before, and I am thankful for my coach. He helped me to like the sport I never thought I would like.
Life before finding out I was having a baby so young was not an ideal teenage life. I was in foster care and staying with a teacher. The reason I was staying with a teacher is because there was a school competition and we had qualified at state to go to nationals. And if I hadn't gone to nationals, it would have messed up the competition that I was competing in. I felt like she was keeping me just so it wouldn't mess up anything so that we would place at nationals. The reason I think this is because the next day, after we got back from nationals, she shipped me off to go live with my brother. I would have rather gone there in the first place instead of to nationals. When I arrived at my brother's house, everything was normal and I felt like my life was going back to normal. I was going to school and making friends at school. All was fine and dandy. That was until I was called into the counselor's office and she told me there was some rumors that I was pregnant and that I looked like it. They called my sister-in-law and told me to get checked. At this moment, the things that were running through my mind were, oh, I'm not really making friends, and oh, great, they're just calling me fat. At this time, I did not know that I was pregnant. So once they told my sister-in-law about the issue, which is what they called it, she set an appointment for the next day. I swear, I was a ball of anxiety. I was 13 years old in an OBGYN office with pregnant adults. Finally, I got called back, and they told me to take the test. Once I got done taking the test, we were taken to a room, and then there was a lot of waiting, and even more waiting. Then finally, the doctor came in and broke the news to me. I was pregnant. They informed me about everything and told me that I had to go get an ultrasound to make sure everything was okay and to see how far along I was. So we left this doctor's office to go to another one. Once we got to the doctor's office, they called us back almost immediately because they wanted to make sure everything was okay. Everything was not okay. I found out on the same day that I was 5 months pregnant, having a little boy, and that he had a cleft lip and palate. I was so surprised and overwhelmed by finding all of this out in such little time that I passed out. I woke up and thought that it was a bad dream. I was wrong. After all that was said and done, I tried to go back to normal, going back to school and all that. I could tell people were staring and judging. And my doctor told me I was high risk since I was so young. So that resorted to me going homeschooled for the rest of the semester of 8th grade. I did well during that time, and my brother and sister-in-law were so supportive and helped me. Then the time came for me to have my son. They told me to come in and get induced because I was high risk, and he was big. I was in labor with him for 2 days. On the second day, at around 2 in the morning, they told me that I would have to have a C-section, and at 2:06 in the morning, he was born. I was so happy to finally have him here, but I was also scared because I was a mom at such a young age, and I had no clue what I was doing. I spent 7 days in the hospital, and then the day came when I got to go home. I was so relieved. A few days after me and my son got to go home, we got moved into a new foster home, luckily together. I was so terrified. I had a newborn and was ripped out of my home and moved at Christmas time. I had to go because I had no choice. Let's just say it felt like the longest car ride of my life. Once we finally arrived at the new home, it wasn't as bad as I had thought. The couple was very welcoming, and they were not judgmental about my age or having a baby. They welcomed me into their home and family. I loved it there. Eventually, my son and I moved back with my dad, and it was all great. To this day, me and my old foster mom still talk. She is like my mom. And my son and her son are best friends. Throughout this experience, I wouldn't change anything because there's a reason this happened. God has a plan. I think that sharing my story might help people not to judge based on what they look, what they see, and what they hear. I would tell people to think twice before bullying or isolating someone based on their situation. Since I went through all this, I feel like I can do anything, and because of what I went through, I am a stronger person.
I got home from my last piano lesson. I feel dread on the car ride home, and even more as I pull into the driveway. Thoughts start to race in my head as I walk in the door. I've lost my interest in piano, yet another go of trying to find my special interest. My brother seems to know what he wants to do. He has it all figured out. What would he say about me quitting another one of my many activities again? What would my parents say? They have always been supportive in whatever I've wanted to try, even the Irish dance phase. But I can't help but feel like a disappointment. There were many activities before piano, and I can confirm there were many more after piano. The reason I've tried all these things is because I've been trying to find my thing. The process is repetitive. I tried ballet, but shortly after lost interest. I always knew I loved to dance, so I tried Irish dance. I liked my teacher and my classmates, but quit after we got a new teacher. I tried theater, which was fun, but it was tiring, and it's a huge time commitment. Then I thought maybe I wanted to be more active, and from there came swimming and basketball, although I couldn't get those down in time for school tryouts. Then I came across ice skating, which I have to say was very fun, but I fell. I fell a lot, like all the time. As I kept trying new things, I realized that maybe there isn't that one thing. Maybe I don't have one special thing, and maybe that's okay. Maybe I haven't found it yet, and it's something like skydiving, and my parents won't let me do it yet. In the 12 years I've been alive, there's been many things I have tried. In addition, I did get to do soccer. There was a very short gymnastics period. I did one golf lesson that my dad took me to, but hoping that I would get interested in that. Sorry, Dad, but that's JJ's thing. My mom helped me tried to get me into running, but I got cramps after about 2 blocks. We walk now. I tried Girl Scouts, but I hated standing out in the cold just to give a stranger a box of cookies I didn't even make. I guess I was a very logical 9-year-old. I cooked with Grandma, but I couldn't crack an egg the right way. I still can't. I took up archery, and I almost killed myself a few times. But after everything I've tried, I've realized that I've learned some things on the journey. I've realized that I love to sing and dance, and I have a ton of random skills, with the exception of skydiving. And I've been healthy and active throughout the past years of my life, and I plan on continuing on being healthy and active throughout the future years of my life. So today I can look back and say how proud I am of all the things that I've tried. I've made the choice to keep trying new things because I have lots of time to figure out my true talents, and I plan on living life to the fullest.
What is it like being in DCFS? Well, I've had many kids who are not in DCFS ask me that a lot. Let me tell you, I first entered DCFS when I was 14 years old due to a family tragedy. When I was 13, I had watched my mom die peacefully. It was always me and her in the beginning. My brother moved out when he was in his 20s. I visited him when I could. His name is Jay, like Mockingjay, but without the mocking. My dad is from Nigeria. He crossed the border to America to see my mom, I'm guessing. When she had me, he left as soon as I was born. Nobody knows nothing about him. Growing up, I was bullied a lot in school. Kids hated the way I looked, talked, smiled, smelled. 7th grade was the worst year of my life. Kids from school were awful. They humiliated me. Some foreign exchange students from Africa became my friends, and I started doing bad stuff with them. They made me steal $75 from my mom and credit cards because they wanted me to buy stuff for them. I was mildly upset because my mom was upset. I didn't show my feelings, but after everything I did, I felt it. Felt it a lot. All the bad feelings you could ever feel. But I didn't know what to do with them. I was sent to the hospital during my 7th grade year. And the first time going was for an attempt. I tried to end my life. When I went away, my mom was scared and lonely. I called her from the hospital, and you can tell in her voice she has been crying. I felt really bad. I tried so hard to stop, but every day felt like nothing was getting better. I went away again. Now, this was the most traumatizing part to me that still haunts me to this day. My aunt came to pick me up from the hospital and brought me home to Mom, who was pretty sick. We talked for a few minutes, and she said she had to throw up. She had water in her lungs, couldn't even eat food without throwing it back up. I went outside on the balcony and texted my boyfriend asking if he wanted to hang out. I figured I would let my mom rest. I grabbed my phone, a hoodie, spare keys, and I left. I was only out with him for like 15 minutes, and it started pouring. I told him we might have to go home. I decided to walk him home, and he called me a gentleman, and I called him a dork. I walked him home and walked myself back home soaking wet and cold. I unlocked my apartment door and walked in. My mom was still sleeping. So I was doing my own things. I sang out loud, wrote a few poems, then I made myself dinner. I would always look in my mom's room to see if she woke up. Nothing. I became anxious. I didn't know what to do. I poked her and her skin was super cold. I yelped. My anxiety grew higher. I was freaking out mentally because I didn't know how to act physically. I texted my friend asking her, what should I do if my mom wasn't breathing? She said, call the ambulance. I did. It was almost midnight and I couldn't stop pacing. I looked out on the balcony and saw flashing lights. They were here. They came upstairs and I let them in. They checked for her pulse. Nothing. Then they did that defibrillator thing on her. Nothing. I was shaking and scared. I almost threw up. They did their last one and there was silence. The man looked at me with such sadness. She's gone. I screamed and started crying. I fell to the floor and cried my heart out. I never felt this way before. I couldn't breathe. I felt my whole world burn into flames. My mom just died. I had to call some family. I had to leave the building because I couldn't look at her corpse. I sat outside crying some more. Some cars pulled up. It was my brother that walked out, my cousin, her dad, my auntie, and uncle. I couldn't look at my brother. He kept telling me it's okay. I felt so sick. I didn't even want to go back upstairs with them. That's when my life changed. After having so many family fights over who wants to take care of me, I was sent to Aunt Martha's for 4 months. Didn't even make it that long until I decided to end my life again. Things just didn't get better. They sent me to a hospital. I was there for 7 weeks. My first caseworker recommended a residential. I refused. until my cousin, who I never heard of, fought for me to come home with her. She believed I could be in a home with family. I felt happy for once that someone wanted me. I was only at home for 1 week. That is because I got into arguments with my cousin's daughter. If nobody loved me, what is the point in living? And I overdosed in front of my cousin. She sent me to the hospital. It was terrible. I felt like no one loved me enough to care. During that time, I was going to school through Zoom. Fast forward a little bit. I started interviewing for different group homes. That's when I found Cunningham Children's Home. I was more than happy to come to them. I had some visits with them before they could set a date for me to come. Being there had a lot of ups and downs. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. It took me a long time to get to where I needed to be. When I first started out, I was going to hospitals like crazy. I got into fights, had heartbreaks playing around with residential boys and group home boys. We're the only female unit, so we're the only thing they can look at. I had some friendship issues. I would get into fights with this one girl. I had bonding issues I shared very deeply with staff members. Academic issues, too, were no joke. Then I had my self-harming moments. All of these things that have happened while I've been at Cunningham have shaped me into a different person. My hospital trips have stopped. It's been 5 months. That girl I always had beef with, there will be people like her out there. But honestly, she has helped me learn how to manage myself when someone makes me mad or triggered. She has helped me realize that I am in control. I can control what to say and what not to say. I can control my own emotions and not give her power that bothers me all day. I learned how to love myself, even on my worst days. I'm still learning. I am so much more than people think. Love yourself, ladies, because at the end of the day, you only have yourself to lean on and love. Can't love others if you don't love yourself. Your heart will thank you later. Being a DCFS kid isn't so bad. As I get older and age out of the system, I will continue to live life as planned and continue to thrive for success. I will make many people proud and happy, including the ones I love. Yes, I know there will be hard times, but I know I have the power in me to get through it all. Life goes on.